Καλησπέρα σας, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us. We're here to talk about Venice. Venice is a dream destination for people worldwide. It's a place so irresistible that even billionaires choose it for the most special moments, as we were all recently reminded. Behind the myth and the postcard image, though, the legendary Serenissima is far less serene than her name suggests. The city is increasingly a victim of its own magnetism. Overtourism is pushing daily life to the limit, the resident population keeps shrinking, and the historic center is often described as an overcrowded theme park. Above all, scientists warn that climate change is accelerating the pressure, with rising sea levels and floods threatening one of humanity's greatest cultural treasures. Our special guest today faces these challenges on a daily basis. He grew up and still lives in Marghera, the mainland district that hosts both the industrial port and the docking point for large cruise ships. He entered public life at just 22, and today, as deputy mayor, he oversees one of the most demanding portfolios of the city, full of hot potatoes: tourism, social welfare, healthcare, economic development, labor, and housing policy. Welcome, Mr. Venturini. I hope we have a connection. Welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. I am certain you are an extremely busy man, which makes our more grateful for being here with us.
Thank you for the invitation. I wish I were here, but in Venice, dealing with a lot of important issues, so I cannot be there, but thank you for the invitation.
Allow me to start with the first question. Back in 1988, I believe it is the year when you were born, the historic center of Venice had more than 80,000 residents. Today, it's closer to 48,000. And also the wider lagoon area has dropped from 48,000 to around 26,000. So, of course, many factors contribute to this decline, but how significant, in your opinion, is the role of tourism and the pressures that come with it?
Yeah, you know, Venice is a unique city, so with a lot of opportunities and a lot of fragilities. Logistic and commuting can be tough in Venice, of course. And during the 90s and the early 2000s, we suffered of a lot of job loss for important functions as banks, insurance, and other important offices that were here in the middle of the lagoon, in the middle of Venice. And this office moved elsewhere in Milan or in the countryside. So a lot of jobs need to change city and went to live elsewhere. On the other hand, the tourism arrived in 19s and 2000, and we suffer a sort of unbalanced tourism. Venice was maybe the first city to suffer and to feel the unbalanced tourism as a problem. And I think that Venice in the last 10 years was also the city that started to tackle these issues and try to figure a new way to deal with this problem, not canceling the problem of the tourism, but using the opportunities to attract new residents, new functions, new jobs not related with the tourism sector. So after COVID, we are experimenting a new phenomenon. A lot of people are coming to live in Venice from elsewhere, from London, from Paris, from New York, and they are choosing Venice because of the quality of life, of the slowness of the city, and of the safety and security of the city, because it's the most safe city in Italy, maybe in Europe. You can go around during night, you can do whatever you want without any feel of unsafety. And we are attracting new jobs related with creative industries and immaterial kind of work and jobs. So I think that we are dealing with a new spring of the city. But of course, we are in the country very old, and the aging population in the historic city of Italy is a big problem, not only in Venice, but in every city in Italy and in Europe, I think. And we have also a big problem in Venice, that is the extra cost of everything. Doing things in Venice is very expensive because it's a city built on water. So for the restoration, the maintenance of the building, if you need to restore your own house, you need to spend double or the triple of another normal city. So this extra cost is an obstacle to people that want to live in the city. So we are figuring out a way to use also the public house owned by the city to attract middle class that Venice lost in the 2000s.
One of the most controversial topics you had to deal with has to do with cruise ships. We don't see anymore for quite a few years now these dramatic images of big, large vessels towering like skyscrapers over the city. But to take the decision to reach this limitation imposed in 2021, I think, took so many years, so much consideration and deliberation, and caused quite a lot of tension with stakeholders. Almost 5 years later, how do you assess that decision, and how do you respond to pressures that still remain to either relax or even undo this measure?
You know, I was talking before about the effort of the city to tackle all the problem, the historic problem that the city had, and the relation with the tourism. One of the most important topic was the cruise ships. And of course, the passage of the cruise ships in front of St. Mark's Square, but also the number of tourists that arrived with the cruise ships during the weekend and during some particular day. So right now, we can say that the problem is solved because the cruise ships aren't coming anymore through St. Mark Basin, through the heart of the city. Only 2 cruise ships can arrive, but in the industrial area, and we manage it in a very good way, instead of the 8 big cruise ships that were in Venice before 2021. And of course, we are still struggling to figure it out the best way to dock the cruise ships in the industrial area. But here it is the big problem of the city. We are a unique city, a special city, and of course, the most special city in the world, I think. But we have the same tools and the same power as any other city in Italy. We cannot manage the water outside the Grand Canal because it's water managed by the state level. We cannot manage the port area because it's managed by the Port Authority appointed by the national level. We cannot intervene in the national law allowing the free market on retail, on souvenir shop, on licenses, on Airbnb and so on. So this is the big problem of the city, not only of Venice, but all the historic city in Italy. These cities are asking to the national level more power, more tools to deal with their own specific problem, but only the local and historical city has. Of course, this is why we had to wait a long time to obtain a solution for the cruise ships. And this is why we are still asking for this special legislation for the city of Venice, because we need special powers and special resources to deal with the special cities and special problems.
Another bold step you took is bringing an access fee for day visitors. And this is one of the first measures that the people think of when we talk about tourism management in sensitive destinations. As a matter of fact, several island and traditional municipalities in Greece are also now considering and asking for it. So this year you ran it for a second trial period of 54 days, issuing around 700,000 daily vouchers and generating roughly 5 million euros, which you've earmarked to reduce waste collection costs for residents and businesses. Critics, although, argue that an entry fee doesn't address the deeper issue, which is the city's limited capacity to absorb visitors, that it works more like a painkiller than a cure to a problem that you have. How do you respond to that? And what are your plans for this particular measure in the next year or further in the future?
So I think that usually we talk about overtourism, thinking that all the tourists are the same and all the tourism are the same. I think that we have different layers on the world tourism. And overnight tourists are not the same of a day tripper or people that arrive just for 1 hour, 2 hours to take a selfie in Summer Square and go elsewhere. Or a group organized to visit 3 cities in Italy in 1 day. So we want to better manage the overnight tourism, of course, but the problem in Venice is not the overnight tourists, are the day tripper, because they arrive in the same hour by train or by boat or by coaches. They just do the same road from the station to Summer Square, and they leave the city around 4 p.m. in the same time. So a sort of wave of people arriving and leaving the city, leaving nothing behind beyond garbage. So we want to address this topic because this is the most important problem on the relation between the city, a small city with narrow street, fragile sites, fragile building, fragile monuments, and the wave of people that some days arrive in Venice. Not every day and not around all Venice, just in 3-4 specific roads and doing the same street, the same itinerary and go back. So this is why we introduced this sort of tax that is aimed not to make money. We don't want to make money with that. We just want to cover the cost of the system managing, but is addressed to discourage the day tripper, and maybe, and we want to stress more this point, to inform the people about the specific rule of Venice, the specific way how to behave in Venice, why you cannot jump in the canal, why you cannot eat a sandwich in a church, why you cannot just sit in the middle of the road, blocking the pedestrian walks. So this is why we want to enforce this access fee, because the tourist, the day tripper, needs to book his visit and need to read some material that we provide to him, and is a better informed tourist. We try to educate the tourists before his arrival, because we want not to be a closed city with gates, but a city that attracts a different different kind of tourism, with people that want to love the city, to know the history of the city, to know the rule of the city, and maybe visit something different than Rialto and Summer Square, and maybe doing a different itinerary to reach Summer Square, and maybe falling in love with some artisanal shops or some specific church that nobody visits, and so on. So this is why we are stressing this system, and we are receiving important feedback from the people, more from the international tourism, that are understanding this initiative and are okay with that. They understand why the city of Venice is doing it, and they are happy not only to pay the tax, a small tax of course, but to make a different approach to the city in a more deep and reflexive way.
You also have a technological weapon, which is a smart control room that can record in real time the flows of crowds in the city and navigate, for example, larger groups, or make things easier and release some pressure from the daily life of the city. But at the end of the day, this is still a small, in terms of area, city that invites 30 million people per year. Is that sustainable? And whatever you do with the daily life, no matter how small or big improvements, is the number sustainable? 30 million, I mean.
It's not the absolute number the problem, it's the concentration of the people in some specific period and some specific area. Because even in the most crowded days, if you just step 15 meters outside the beaten path, you will find a total different city, a magic city with silent streets, nothing about mass tourism related. So it's not just the number the problem, it's the way it is spread and the way it's concentrated in some particular period. And this is why we are addressing this topic with the access fee, not all year long, but only the 50 or 60 days when we feel that the city is overcrowded. So in 2021, we organized and built a big brain of the city, an operative center, where we collect every data about the city, not only the number of people arriving in the city and the nationality, but also we know the number of people going through some particular bridges or some particular spaces. We know the public transport system in real time. We know the tides, because in Venice, the tides are related also with the mobility. And with high tide, you cannot go under some bridges, and with low tide, some canals cannot be navigated. So it's important to know the tides because we can arrange the public transport in this direction. On the other hand, we can know in real time how an event is going, because we have a lot of CCTV and we have a lot of events in Venice, of course, during Carnival and during summer more, but we need to know in real time what's happening and where, so we can react if we need some sort of intervention, maybe by the local police on the public transport, need more boat to transport more people from an island to the city center, and so on. So it's an important brain, an important real-time brain that tell us what we need to do and what we need to address. And this is very important on a city managing base. You know, Venice is one of the most clean cities in the world, but it's very difficult to keep it clean because we cannot have the machine, trucks, or so on. We use people with brooms. We collect the garbage door by door. And it's very expensive, but the city is very clean. But we can see if something is going wrong, if we see some garbage abandoned in some spaces near some Mark Square or Riyadh Square, or Riyadh Bridge, and we intervene in real time to resolve the problem. So this is why it's an important brain, but still we are using it at half of this potential. Because with artificial intelligence, with all the new predictive model, this data that we are collecting will be very useful also to predict what is happening in the next year, to find some patterns on some problem and deal with them. So I think that we are the pioneer of a new way to use also a lot of data linked to every layers of real life in Venice, and try to solve the problem before they arrive in a very futuristic way, but I think that is the future of the city managing.
Thank you. We have less than 4 minutes, but I have two important issues to address. There is a recent Arte documentary titled The Last Venetians, where residents describe a city where the most common name on a doorbell is Locazione Turistica. Tourist beds outnumber permanent residents, and some families are even occupying abandoned apartments just to remain in Venice. So housing is a crisis everywhere, but in Venice it is felt with exceptional intensity. And you've received a lot of criticism that you've been slow to regulating short-term rentals or even renovating some abandoned apartments to put in for long-term rents. What is the way forward for you regarding this?
So we are the first administration that put a cap on the number of hotels. Before our administration, it was automatic to transform a residential building, a palace, in an hotel without paying anything to the city. So this is why a lot of hotels just pop up during the 90s and 2000s. This is why we put a cap. So if you want to build an hotel in Venice, you cannot do it. If you want and you want to ask, you will be answered that you cannot do it anymore. We just authorized one hotel because it was a formal, important building sold by the Chamber of Commerce. But the city collects 10 million euros of the resources that we use to restore public apartments around the cities. So before our administration, it was very easy to open an hotel in all the palaces of the city. Still, right now, it's impossible. Still, we have a problem with the Airbnb phenomenon, because in Italy, we lack a national law that says something on this matter. Around Europe, a lot of states, a lot of regions had the opportunities and the means to put a regulation on Airbnb and short-term rental sector. In Italy, we lack this opportunity on a city level. We still have a small possibility, but is very bad written by the national level, and we are still studying it to avoid court of law and problem with the private that will sue the city for damage, because the city is not able to stop this problem. On the other hand, we are working on our public houses. We have 5,000 houses in Venice. The majority of that are rented to people that are living there. And we are restoring, in this moment, 500 houses that will go on the public family that want to live there, using a transparent call that the city will do on online base. So in the last year, we gave 1,000 keys to 1,000 family to live in public houses. Of course, restoring a house in Venice is a long process, because you need to deal with a lot of structural issues. And on the other hand, you need to deal with a lot of bureaucratic issues, because every restoration in Venice needs to be verified by the Ministry of Culture for the conservation and heritage purpose. So this is why every project in Venice requires a lot of process and at least 2 years for restoring a house. And this is why the costs are very high.
We're a little bit over time, but I think we should ask one more question that has to do with climate change and with, there has been much consideration at UNESCO to consider an endangered World Heritage Site, the city of Venice. Are there any plans into motion, long-term plans, to keep the city afloat, regularly speaking?
Yes. Right now we have the Mose system. Mose system is a submarine dam that is in work. It works in a very good way, and it keeps Venice safe from the high tide. The high tide in Venice are caused by the water entering from the sea into the lagoon. When we have high tides, we have a lot of water coming from the sea in the lagoon. So the Mose system stops the water coming from the sea, and we use some provisions, some important models to know when the tides are arriving and when we need to raise the Mose system, a sort of gate that keeps the lagoon safe from the seawater. This is not the only solution, of course, and we need to build a more resistant city, because salted water can be damaging for the marble, for the stones, for the rocks that are in Venice. So we are raising the surface level on a lot of streets and a lot of neighborhoods of Venice, Canareggio, Castello. So we are raising the floors of the city, and on the other hand, we are protecting Summer Square, the most fragile place of Venice, but also the lowest part of the city, that even with normal tide can go under the water. So this is why we protected the Basilica di San Marco, San Mark church, with a glass barrier that keep the church safe, and the marble, the precious stone are now safe from the high tides and from the normal tides. And we are doing a waterproof system of all the San Mark Square. But still, we need to keep it going, the island, the naturalistic area, because sea level rise is a worldwide problem. And I think that we are the most exposed city, the city that feels the most this important problem in a worldwide situation, but we are maybe the first, the pioneer and the first line to feel touched by this problem. But we are addressing it. Right now, Venice is safe from the high tides. And after the 2019 floods that destroyed the ground floor of the city, right now Venice is safe, and we are safe for at least 100 years. But of course, we need to think right now what will happen in 100-year time.
Thank you very much. So the chances are, if we decide to visit, we will be dry, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's been really exciting to be speaking with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.